Mic check. Hi everyone. Good day to you today. My name is Hassan, and we're going to be looking at project management. And this aspect of project management that we're going to be looking at the most is project control and planning in practice. So, just a couple of setups here, and we should be live and ready to roll. Awesome. So, mic check. Okay, I guess my screen is clear and live. Yeah, welcome to today's stream. Again, my name is Hassan Anifowoshe. I'm a co-founder at Chrono Studios, and I'll be taking you through project control and planning in practice today. So, let's look a little bit about myself. I'm an architect and co-founder at Chrono Studios, just like I said, and I'm also a BIM and VR specialist. And what that basically means is I do building information modeling research, and I'm also a VR game developer. So I'm currently a PhD student in construction science, Department of Texas A&M, and I also have experience based on some of my graduate certificate classrooms in public management. So, yeah, I've got a long history of education and work experience, and I bet that positions me to be a subject matter expert, and to speak with you today. So, let's look at what project management is for a start, and we can basically go from there and start talking about project control and planning in practice. So, what is project management? I mean, let's look at it this way: we're all project managers, right? We're all project managers, and one thing is important. We need to know that in our daily lives, we require management in everything that we're doing. So, this is a typical example. Imagine you have to go to the grocery store, and then you have to go get some gas, and you have to shuffle in between what time the grocery store closes and what time the gas station closes, and that way you can actually put those in a kind of schedule and determine which one has priority and which one has dependence. So basically, that is just project management. It's about being able to plan and control the outcome of what you intend to achieve. So let's look at what Chrono Studios has been doing. So we pride ourselves with our work in the design and construction industry, and we typically tell ourselves that we're improving the way people experience interior design, architecture, and construction, and we're extending that excellence to everybody that comes our way. All right, so this today's session is not a training. It's going to be a presentation that helps you understand, helps you with a basic understanding of um, project control and planning, and their entire certificate project, certificate courses and degree courses about project management. So this is just going to basically give you an overview. We're going to talk about an overview of project management, project control, project planning. We're going to talk about teams, how forming teams are very important. We're going to talk about processes, communications, and strategy, and then we're going to go to risk management, because risk is a big part of project control. We're also going to look at a case study that or some of the projects I typically work on, and we're also going to look at my favorite project management tools. I think you're going to find this portion interesting, and then we're going to go into the quality control and delivery for projects. So let's look at the overview and the project team. So here is a typical scene from history. It's very common. Well, I would say it might be common to us. You can see the king in the picture. You can see the builder, and then you can see the king's builder, and then you can see the designer in the picture. They are all an entire part of a project scheme, and project management basically is the process, that supports the pursuit of design excellence and the implementation of the project as intended by all the stakeholders. So people come together and say, "Would like to have a project, would like to do something this way, would like to do it, and we need XYZ number of people in a XYZ pattern of ways." They put money, they put time, and then, they define an expected outcome basically. And the job of a project manager basically is to ensure that that implementation is as flawless as possible. So, and then when saying as flawless as possible, project management is very, very diverse. So, and many people think that project management involves seeing a project from start to finish, flawlessly. But sometimes it involves actually having the guts to make critical decisions that can actually lead to the termination of a project. And if you're an experienced project manager, you know this very well. And there's this popular quote that I found that says, "If you have never recommended canceling a project, you have not been an effective project manager," because it's part of the learning process to cancel a project, of course. So yeah, so one other thing about project management is that it's not science. It's only an art of juggling, balancing, and achieving effective results while working with people. Now, if you're going to control your project, if you're going to plan your project, all these little pieces of your project management knowledge has to come to play. And one of the major parts is actually working with people. And the team is so important in your objectives as a project manager to actually reach your project planning and control objectives. And if you see in this picture, you can see the choir master, the orchestra conductor. He knows the right time to call an instrument group. He knows the right pitch for them to play in. He knows when to stop. He knows when to go fast, and he provides all these directions for a beautiful orchestral outcome. And again, the expected outcome is beautiful symphony, beautiful music scores used for movies or useful for live performances and all of that. And it rests on his shoulder to ensure all of that happens. And basically, that is what project management is like. And there's a popular quote, that goes like this: good leaders do not take on all the work themselves. Neither do they take on all the credit. They usually will assign some credit to people who also help them to get the job done. And if you look at how we set up real world project teams, basically, school projects are made up of, you know, almost equally yoked team members. In the real world, you have to take people as they are, and you have to work from there. People are different in knowledge, in background, in skill level, in belief systems, and all of that. So, how do you juggle a real world team with so much diversity in its people? It's different from in a school project where similar people with a kind of similar mindset or similar skill level are brought together. Also, in real life, you want to keep your team sizable. You want to ensure that tasks are actually split between teams of maybe 5 or 6 people, 4 to 6 people. That's about the optimum size of task teams if you really, really want to achieve anything. And once the team gets bigger, it becomes really, really tough to actually get very good outcomes. If you want to power through tasks really quickly, the most efficient teams are typically between 4 to 6. And there's a popular saying that goes like, when it comes to project meetings, make sure that your attendees are sizable. Yeah, if a meeting cannot be fed by 2 pizzas, then it's too big, and that's considerably a large amount of people already. Feeding people with 2 pizzas, excuse me. So you don't want to overblow your project teams because you probably don't end up with all the results that you would expect. Smaller teams produce much more impact than really large teams spread all over the place. So when a project manager is trying to plan their project controls and all of that, they must ensure that their teams are like small and efficient. That's a very good way of achieving good results. So let me give you a quick hint about some of my team management experiences. Um, one of the, again, I tell people in business, one of the most difficult tasks you can embark on is managing people. It's it's hard. It's downright hard. And without people, projects are not going to be successful. So, people management becomes a highly important skill that is required of anybody who wants to manage a project, who wants to plan a project, who wants to um, uh, make sure that the project results are outstanding. So here is a photograph from 2019 when I was on the team and we were designing a master plan for Itoshima City in Japan. It was a group exercise, and to my total shock, I had to manage a team from three different countries. Speaking three different languages. We had on the group, we have the English speaking people from America, we had the Japanese people, and then we had the Chinese people. And there was so much difficulty and barrier in language that we had to translate English to someone who speaks Japanese. She translates the Japanese. She translates the English to Japanese, and then one of the Japanese team that speaks Chinese translates to Chinese people. And what happens when the Chinese guys also have ideas is that they go back that route until we understand what they're saying in English. Isn't that really tough? But with drawings and lines, we were able to conquer that, conversation barrier, which was a huge, huge lesson for us. Also, like learning how to illustrate your ideas effectively for the next person to understand it is very, very important. So, in that case, where language becomes a huge barrier, you have to devise other means to manage your team, basically. So, some of the team management tips that I'm going to share with you today is one, you have to direct people individually and as a project team. Now, because of the uniqueness of each person on a team, you need to understand them. You need to understand what makes them tick. You need to understand what keeps them moving. Then that way, you can be certain that you have the result that you desire, and then you move everybody together as a team. So, after making sure that you're directing people individually, making sure that they're meeting the objectives, they're motivated, you want to also take the group along as one. So you also have to reinforce the commitment and excitement of the project. If the project leader is not excited about the project, why should somebody else care, right? Um, why should somebody else uh, think that it's important? So you want to make sure that your commitment is up upbeat and that your excitement about the project is real. You have to keep everybody connected with the project, informed. Knowledge is power. You don't want people running in the dark, being being blind and not having information to run with. Typically, what happens is you don't get the results you want because then they're going to be making decisions that vary from the information available, which is not a great place to be. You also want to build agreements that vitalize team members. For example, when I say build agreements, project management really, really involves you making sure that everybody wins on the project. Some people are on the project for the money. It's fine. Some people are on the project for the, you know, professional satisfaction that they participated in the project, right? So you have to know what makes everybody tick and make sure that you're making agreements that makes them want to wake up and get out of bed, because that is actually what keeps them wanting to continue to deliver your expectations on the project. So also you want to empower yourself and others on the project team. And I tell people, like, you can't expect someone to achieve an objective without providing them with the right tools, right? Doesn't make sense. You want someone to send you a Microsoft Word document and they don't even have a computer. How the hell, excuse me, how are they going to do it? So it's important that you empower yourself and make sure you have the right tools. Okay, you have the right tools to do the job, and also you have the right team using the right tools to do the job. So that way, everybody is empowered and they can basically achieve all their objectives. So the other one would be, to encourage risk taking and creativity. Knowledge doesn't end with the leader. You find out sometimes that there are some people, based on their experience, that are willing to take some risk. Okay, we can do it this way. and it's possible. So don't shut down those ideas, about doing things. It's as a project leader, as a project control manager, or as a project planning manager, as a project manager. One of your jobs is to encourage risk taking and make sure that the people you're leading are actually providing you with, really, really brilliant ideas that will help you all to achieve your objectives. So what does strategy, processes, and communications look like? This is what it looks like, right? Joy and fulfillment when projects are completed to success. A lot of people don't, really understand how important strategy is, when you plan, and it doesn't. And I always say, strategy doesn't start when you get the project. It starts before you actually work on the project. So pre-project strategy is usually overlooked in project management, and in startup culture we call it the dance. The dance basically is everybody, brainstorming and coming together and strategizing and planning what to do, what not to do. Um, and here's a short story. So I participated in Aggies Invent, which was like a 3 day hackathon, and my team held the most intense strategy session. And then, other teams basically just dived into the work. But we got a lot of advantage because of that initial strategy session that we initiated. We defined the big picture and the goals. We defined the steps and the objectives. We assigned roles to team members based on everybody's strengths, of course. And we also defined timelines that we want to achieve these tasks. So once we were all defined, we hit the ground and we started running. Some projects, are planned years ahead. Talk about planning of an airport renovation, for example. Think about how it impacts on vehicular traffic flow. Think about how it impacts on arrival gates, flight partners, passenger movement and transfers. Um, and you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. Part of the strategies, like I was telling you, is planning. Planning ahead gives you a great foundation all the time. It's undisputed. It surely does that. And foresight and prepositioning is very important. So, how do you have foresight? How do you create foresight? You look at the market, you look at where things are going, you look at what the implications of some actions are going to be over a specific period of time, and you kind of, position yourself ready for all of those impacts. Are you working on a project in a country that is likely to go to war? You don't want to be in the middle of the project and suddenly realize there's war and have no backup solutions or options. Just think about how the pandemic happened to all of us. Nobody saw it coming, right? So a lot of companies were not prepared. No company I can well, very hardly would you see any company that had a pandemic protection plan, right? It just didn't exist. So you want to preposition yourself for any likelihood of any event, as much as you can see. Also, you want to nurture existing relationships, and by existing relationships, I mean your network, the people that you know. Rely on their strength. Make those phone calls, send those emails, because what you don't know, you can be sure that somebody else know. And I tell people it takes about 300% more effort to establish a new relationship. Why do you want to do that? And it takes one third of that effort to maintain an existing one, right? Because they already know you, they already trust you. You don't have to start building trust all over again. So another hint about strategy is that you need to have a clear picture of a successful outcome. What do you want your project to end up like? What do you want it to look like eventually? What's the big picture? What does it look like for you? um, Having a clear picture of the final outcome is very helpful to everybody on the project. For you need to know what stakeholders need, that derives the highest level of satisfaction. You need to know what is important to them. Is it overall completion cost? Is it quality? Is it time for completion? What makes them tick? And you have to identify all these associated metrics, and of course then it becomes easier for you to reach success. So make sure you're always defining a clear picture of what a successful outcome is, and that just makes the job easier. So depending on the scale of a project, there usually might be more than one project manager or project control manager or project logistics planner or project planning expert, or whatever the title is. There might be more than one. And typically, what you want to do is you want to understand the processes. What a typical person in your shoes, controlling a project or managing a project or planning a project, might have to deal with. Um, you know, and let's look at accounting, for example. You might find yourself crunching the numbers, right? You might find yourself, making sure that the numbers make sense. Because nobody likes to run over budget on a project, because when you do, it's basically a ton of disaster. So you might find yourself doing a lot of accounting and being sure that the projections, the budgeting, and all of that is in place. You find out also that you're doing quality control. Everybody else coming into the project needs to have a standard of quality that meets the project established standards. You want to make sure that what you're getting is matching what is required of the scale of project you're working on. Contract administration involves you actually administering contracts between everybody. Making sure that there are win-win situations between different parties. Um, Different parties usually have their terms and conditions that have to be met in order for them to be effective on the project. And you have to make sure that every other party agrees to these terms and conditions, and people are ready to roll. So it involves a lot of um, communication between so many people or so many teams or so many companies. And also we'll look at progress reporting. So one other part of this is that you have to report how well you're doing on a project, how far you're going. Are you behind time? Are you ahead of time? With that reporting and making sure that everybody's on the same page, it usually would help with projections, understanding the project status, and being able to foresee likely pitfalls and avoiding them, of course. So let's talk about communication. There are contracts everywhere, and usually a skilled project manager or project control manager or project logistics planning expert typically negotiates contracts. Okay, you have to get to that sweet soft spot that it's a win-win for everybody involved in the contract. Otherwise, you're going to have dysfunctional teams. You're going to have dysfunctional project members. You're going to have dysfunctional stakeholders. When people see that something is not going to be in their interest, they typically get emotionally unsubscribed and they fall off. So you don't want to, have a disjointed team running a project, because then the burden for actually reaching conclusion becomes really high. So you want to negotiate contracts, you want to consult with clients and stakeholders. You're going to be talking to a lot of people. And I have one rule. If you say you're going to send an email, make sure you send it within 24 hours. Um, it's very important, because people will, you know, have that level of respect for you when you communicate. They're not going to ignore you because you stay with your word. You're going to manage consultants. You're going to have, so for example, again, I'm going to give an example from the design and construction industry. We've got, um, architects, electrical, contractors or consultants. We're gonna have interior designers. We're gonna have landscape architects and all of that. You're gonna have to manage every one of them, and if you don't know what they're doing, how are you gonna how are you gonna be able to tell them what to do and what not to do? So I usually say, and I task myself and others with this saying that a project manager is a very versatile person. You need to be very knowledgeable in all aspects of things to be able to manage project, because basically when you're bringing everybody together, you want to know what's important to X or what's important to Y, what X capabilities and what Y's capabilities. Think about the pyramids of Egypt again in the previous slides that I shared. The king's builder, knows what the designer is doing. He knows what it's capable of, and he knows what the king wants. Being able to manage the workers, building the pyramids too, is a totally different ball game. So you're gonna find out that you're managing all kinds of people, companies, individuals, teams on a project management task. So also you want to be able to report meetings. Reporting meetings is so essential in the sense that it needs to reflect the topics that were discussed during the meetings, right? And usually, what I'd suggest is that after a meeting, you have to take a few minutes to reflect to make sure that everybody heard the same thing, okay? Because when people walk out of that door in the meeting room, a lot of things happen, and you don't want there to be miscommunications or different kind of expectations. So you want to quickly make sure you recap everything that was discussed, make sure that everybody's on the same page, and typically if there are additional works going beyond the original scope, make sure you're asking for approval before proceeding, and don't just assume that someone says because they suggested something and you accepted to do it, it automatically makes it binding in the contract. No, you have to be very clear. If something is beyond the original scope that was agreed for a project, make sure you state it. Make sure you get approval before making it into an established milestone. And of course, you want to now create clear milestones that each member of the project can actually be informed on at all times. So um, that takes us out of the strategy communication section. Let's look at risk management. Ooh, did you see what's going on there? That's not very pretty, right? This gentleman basically started out to mow a lawn, and then how he ended up on the road and almost getting killed by a vehicle. So risky, right? And just like anything we do in our daily lives, projects come with risks. Things can go from 0 to 100 at any scale. And this begs the question: how do project managers, manage risks? How do project logistics control people manage timing of fallout and all of that? So let's look at um, this project plan characteristics. So you're planning a project, right? You typically have three things, you know, that you have to juggle. You have to juggle them and make sure that they all get into that balance that you expect. These are typical, project constraints, and the typical triple model is mostly applicable to most projects. And if any of these constraints are imbalanced, others are going to automatically be affected. Imagine someone saying they wanted a skyscraper at the cost of building 5 floors, right? Then what's the quality of the skyscraper they're going to have eventually? Or what kind of resources are they going to be able to afford with that budget they've indicated? So it's your job as a project manager, as a project planner, or as a project control expert to make sure that there's a huge balance between the three factors: time, quality, and resources. Because once one of them is unbalanced, your chances of achieving, very good outcomes on a project is pretty low. So let's talk about decision making when it comes to strategy, when it comes to risk management. Um, there's always a go or no go strategy, which I always talk about, and it's very popular in project management or business decision making processes. We're all individuals, and every day we make tons of yes or no choices. Yes, I want this. No, I don't want that. Decision making is a big part of project management, right? And how do project managers manage risks? They're typically, a go or no go position, or a point where you have to make decisions as a project manager, and decisions are mostly precise on projects. It's either a yes or a no. There's only a few maybes, if at all. If at all, there's only a few maybes. You either do it or you don't do it, right? So how do you manage risks and as a project manager? And one thing I'd say is typically you want to either avoid the risk, okay, or you manage it when it comes, or you transfer the risk to another person or stakeholder, right? By contract, or actually taking professional liability insurance. So when things go wrong, which things always do, somebody has to take the fall, right? So if you're not avoiding all those risks by ensuring that your contracts are watertight, You probably have to devise means of managing those risks because either ways they're gonna come. And also, you can actually transfer the risk by saying, oh, on this building project, the deferred liability period is 6 months. What happens if after the first rain we notice a leakage in the roof? As the house owner, or as the client, I don't want to have to spend my money to repair the roof, right? You can transfer the risk to the contractor to make sure that they do the project very well, very nicely, such that they don't also want to take on that risk of coming back to a site 5 months after they've decommissioned to repair a leaking roof. It's going to cost them money, it's going to cost them time. So you can transfer risks with contracts, and you can also avoid, manage, or transfer risks by conduct. The first part is doing quality work and checking that documents do not conflict. You want to make sure that your work is up to standard, and the documents, the contracts, the documentation, the drawings, the contracts, the signatures, and everything, the clauses, that nothing is contradicting or conflicting. You also want to review and understand the applicable codes on the project you're working on. If it says, you shouldn't keep a site open for XYZ number of days without work going on there, or you can't hit a certain amount of setback on a building property because of state laws, you need to make sure you understand all the codes, because if you don't, what happens when trouble comes is that somebody has to take the fall, somebody has to take the risk, somebody has to pay the penalties, and the last thing you want to do is find yourself in that position. You want to seek expertise when you need it. You want to talk to people. You want to talk to people who have done this before. You want to talk to friends who have been down this road. You want to talk to employers who have project management or project planning experience. Don't always think that your knowledge is at the peak, because that can actually be the beginning of other things entirely. So you also want to use quality assurance processes. You want to establish clear definitions of what your quality requirement is. When you have those, you can enforce those quality assurance processes, because what happens is, if you are sure that a phase has been completed according to quality, that saves you from a lot of risk, of carrying a lot of risk across the entire project phase, right? So make sure you have milestones in place to examine and assure quality processes, and you'll be fine. Then you also need to understand and communicate the effects of cost cutting. Money is very important, but reducing budgets at almost no reasonable reasons, or causes, can actually spell a lot of trouble for a lot of project managers. So if the client comes back and say, oh, you know what, we didn't get a loan, we're cutting this project funding by half, that is going to affect a lot of things. Okay, don't shut your eyes to all the implications of cost cutting, because they will come back to haunt everybody on the project. So always make sure that you understand what the implications of cutting those costs are, and communicate the effects. Make sure that everybody understands what the possibilities are, and your job is going to be way easier. Now, you also want to reduce the RFIs, the request for information, and the change orders on a project. When people keep going back and forth on the project, it delays time, it delays quality, it reduces quality, it delays time. People are demotivated because now people start to lose money, and you of course start to lose money, because as a project manager you have a defined time you want to be on a project, and you have other projects to do, right? So reducing the number of requests for information is really, really important, because when there's a lot of back and forth, things get missed out. There are things that go into some loopholes. And the project starts to undergo some shift, which is usually not pleasant. So you want to make sure that you're cutting the amount of requests for information and change orders that are happening on a project. And of course, you can do that by ensuring that all the agreements, all the design drawings, all the planning phase is really, really watertight. So let's talk about a case study of a project that we worked on. the Mitsubishi project. We worked on this project in Victoria Island in Lagos, and this project happened at a very delicate time when the country manager was being replaced by another, because it was basically going to manage another country. And now we had worked with the previous manager for 7 years, right? And now how do we transfer this earned trust to even win the project and still make a profit, right? It was really really tough. So the we had to think about very good strategy, and we got to our go or no go point, whereby our profit was minimal because we needed the new manager to test and trust us. uh, but our relationship was new, so the strategy was to win more projects, and not focus on the profit right now. And now, as I'm talking to you, we're in negotiations for a larger warehouse project, which I think was, pretty much approved a couple of days ago. So, of course, the job had to be done. Design and construction wise, time is important, quality is important, the budget is important, and depending on what your end goal is, you can actually start to make some of these um, you can actually start to tweak some of these factors to make sure that your overall objective is achieved. In this case, the new manager wanted an outstanding building project finished to time, to budget, to good quality. And here we were making sure that we're trying to assure the new manager about our level of experience, level of our capabilities, and of course, in a bid to ensure that we continue to maintain that brand relationship over the next couple of years. So you're going to be faced with a lot of situations that you have to, showcase your communication skills. Which is number one. You want to make sure you're able to communicate properly. You're listening more and you're speaking less. And according to one of my former colleagues, it says there's a reason why we have two ears and one mouth, right? Because you're supposed to listen more than you speak, right? So you also need to have business skills. You want to be business minded. You want to think about what the implications of X is on Y. You're not showing up just because you need your money, you need your pay. You want to establish long-term objectives that is very important for you as an individual and also as a company. So your architecture and business skills can actually, well, not your now, our architecture and business skills came to play on this project, and we kind of, just realized that it was what was important for us, and we did everything we could to make sure that we achieved it. So also your design skills would be important, because you also have to convince everybody on the project that you know what you're doing. Your design and construction skills will have to come into play, and in this case, that exactly what happened to us. We had to showcase that we got pretty great design skills, and we got pretty amazing construction team, and we can meet up with your budget. And what else makes a client happy, right? Delivery. That's what makes a client happy. Delivery to time, quality, and the budget. All right, so let's talk about project management tools. We're getting close to the end of this presentation, and here I'm just going to talk about a couple of the project management tools that I've used. A lot of times, uh, I've had different projects across different companies, across different spectrums, and I've been exposed to a lot of project management tools. Some of them I've used, some of them I've just passed through very flimsily. So here I'm going to talk about these four, which I think most people would be able to use, and that I've used before. Of course, Asana. I'm going to also talk about Rike. I'll talk about ClickUp, and then I'll talk about Microsoft Project. Which let's see what these look like. So let's look at the features of Asana for a start. Asana is pretty easy to assign tasks to assignees. Um, it's so easy that all you have to do is just type the name of someone on your project and assign a task to them, right? It also has chart reporting and status updates, which I love. So look at it this way. If you were going to write a project report, right, would you rather have a project management tool that can help you create that report, or you actually have to keep writing every status of that report every time in a different document? No, right? So Asana does that pretty well by helping you to report status of your project. It has extensive filtering features, right? Um, if you were trying to look up projects in progress, for example, with the filter features, you can easily find all your projects or tasks that are in progress or unassigned tasks, or you don't know who is doing what, or you want to see what one person is doing in an entire project. It's so easy to make all those filters, and you know, Asana is good at that. And also, it has advanced dashboards. Like, you can create your own dashboards, which I like. You can segment your projects or tasks into different kind of categories, all up to you. And it has drag and drop features, which I love. So you can build your own dashboard. I find that really intuitive about Asana. And also, one thing about Asana though is that it doesn't have an internal time tracking tool. So if you are someone who is trying to track every minute or every hour you spend on a project or a task, you have to integrate a time tracking tool into Asana in order to get that. So let's look at the timeline feature of Asana. I love it because it basically enables tasks to be viewed with their dependencies. Like you have a big picture task, and you have all other subtasks that are dependent, or that create the dependencies of that big task. Asana actually helps you view all of those in a very interactive timeline, you know, with a very interactive timeline feature. You also want to understand that Asana is a very powerful tool in the hands of the right people. So people have used it, and I strongly recommend it. Now, with Rike is also very interesting in the sense that it's got great drag and drop features, right? Rike could help you just drag files. If you work on projects that require a lot of file annotations, markups, and all that, you want to work with Rike. It's also good for small businesses for a start, maybe small to medium teams. It's easy for teams to navigate projects and tasks for the sake of project management, which is already hard. You want a tool that is easy to use, right? You can actually tag all your assignees on a project very easily. All you have to just type the @ button and click assignees, and if you have 20 members on a project, they will get that notification, as against you having to type each person, mention each person's name at a time. Okay. And also you can add internal and external collaborators. So if you have people outside the organization or outside your team that are joining you on a specific project, but they don't have to have access to the entire project tool, project management software, you can just assign them to specific tasks, and that way, once the task is over, you can take them out of the tool. So another one is Asana. Sorry, not Asana now. ClickUp. ClickUp has various features. For example, you can segment your ClickUp tasks into like tons of categories depending on the status of the task itself. I love ClickUp for that. You can actually use that to manage your own individual projects. It can take a little bit of time to learn, but once you get a hang of it, it's very easy. Good news, right? It has time tracking integrated, which means that you can basically just track the time in the task, and it's so easy like that. You can also view, share and view links if you want somebody else outside your organization to see the status of a project. You can share a link, and that way all they have to do is click on the link, and they will see the real-time status of the project as you update it. So it's cloud-based. Now, almighty Microsoft Project. Let's talk about Microsoft Project. This is more common in academic or maybe larger and established companies who use the entire Microsoft suite. You can actually find it used in smaller firms too, but again, it's more like for the established groups of companies or teams and all of that. It has a great dependency management. You can basically drag and drop and alternate and move things around, and they get reflected real time in the other sections of that tool where your tasks appear. So I love Microsoft Project for that. And the drag and drop features are really cool and easy. That saves you from a lot of tough time trying to segment tasks into where they belong. You can easily move them around, just like a play thing. And also, you can assign tasks to specific team members. So if just like the other other project management tools, you have to make sure that the people are in your team, the people that you're trying to assign tasks to are using the same project management tool, because that's the only way you can get to tag them or assign tasks to them. And also, it's robust for enterprise. So you would see that a lot of big companies want to use tools like this because, of course, it's got a lot of robust features, and maybe it meets their pricing requirements, which is good. So yeah, let's talk about project control and delivery. Um, Project control and delivery is basically split into four. I like to say there is a planning section, there's a control section, um, there's a quality planning section. You're trying to plan what kind of quality you expect. There's a quality control section where you're trying to control and make sure that you know the processes for achieving those established qualities are met. And then there's an assurance phase where you're assuring everybody on the team and all the stakeholders that the quality has been met, and also quality improvement, whereby in cases where quality is not met, you actually have a plan and process to improve on the quality. So let's look at the steps for quality control and project delivery. So typically in quality planning, most quality advisors will join the team from the inception, and they will identify requirements of the quality requirements of a project. uh, that way everybody understands um, what is expected of a project. And then you go to the next phase, which is the control, where you can actually review the project quality at established milestones or checkpoints. um, and you basically say, oh hey, we've done this, and now it's time to say, have we met um, the requirements? Have we met the established quality guidelines and levels? And that way, when you have those measures in place, that's actually when you're actually working on what you've planned. So this quality control section is mostly where the lot of work is happening. And then there's also the quality assurance, whereby where you state categorically that the outputs are correct with established quality standards, and you document them, and you issue those quality certificates, quality letters, or quality assurance stamps and seals and all of that. And then there's a quality improvement, whereby you say you have to improve and you complete the controls. You want to be sure that your project has gotten to that point whereby all the snags, all the things you've listed that needs to be fixed according to the established standards are fixed. And then once that is done, then your project is complete. And only after this process is done, which is a quality improvement, that is when your project is complete. And you basically want to work with this checklist to be sure that at every point in time you're checking things out and saying, oh, this is done, this still needs to be done. And then when everything checks out, your project is over. So conclusion and discussions. Let's look at this image and GIF you're seeing right here. So this is a Formula One crew, right? And each crew is typically made up of about 20 people, and there's a world record that was set in 2020. I mean, imagine. And it takes 1.82 seconds to change 4 tires of a Formula One car. 1.82 seconds. That's less than 2 seconds. That's 1, 2, done. show me a better project management planning and result than this. You're deploying resources, people. You're working with time. You're working with a budget, of course, right? Because for every time you lose 1 second on the at the pit, you lose more time in the race. So let's hear some of your thoughts in the comment sections below. Why are you here? What motivates you to be a project manager? What motivates you to be a project control expert? What motivates you to be a project planning expert? What excites you about projects? Would like to hear. Would like to read your comments below, and as much as we can, provide answers to you. So again, thank you for joining the live stream today, and expect more to come in the future. Thank you, and have a good